CTV National's Adrian Gobriel joins us live, continuing his coverage in Israel. He is live this morning there. Adrian, so what is the latest on the situation at the Raffa Crossing?
Well, the latest that we've heard is that it remains closed. Last night, the U.S. Secretary of State was wrapping up his tour of multiple Arab nations. He was on the tarmac in Cairo. He said that the Rafah crossing would be reopening. We've heard reports this morning of large numbers of Palestinians heading towards the Rafah crossing. It's now 3 o'clock in the afternoon here, but earlier this morning, because they had heard that perhaps there might be a ceasefire and perhaps the Rafah crossing might open. We've been told now that we've heard from both Hamas and Israeli officials saying that that is not happening. There was no ceasefire coming. And the border remains closed. You've got aid on one side that Egypt is trying to bring in, vital aid. They need medicine, they need food. There's issues with water, electricity. There are foreign nationals. We know of at least 300 Canadians who are trying to flee the southern port of Gaza and into Egypt. And this is a vital crossing. It's really the only crossing, the only border that is open right now to get people out of Gaza before a potential ground offensive begins, though it remains closed and has so for several days now.
And you know, this order to have about 1 million people or residents in the Gaza area, in the northern area, to evacuate, what exactly does that look like right now? Where are they expected to go?
Yeah, the UN, as we've discussed, has called it a potential humanitarian disaster. It is such a large movement of people. Latest reports were that there was still a steady stream of Palestinians heading from the north to the south, but there really is nowhere to go. As of last night, I haven't heard the updates yet today, but as of last night in southern Gaza, we had heard that the Israelis had turned water back on so that water could flow through there, but there's no electricity on, so the water actually can't be pumped out. They're trying to obviously encourage people to head to the south. There's also concerns about hospitals in the north, that there's patients in there. The hospitals have been told to evacuate their patients. Hospitals saying that would be a death sentence for many people receiving critical care. So just a really difficult situation on so many fronts.
And what's life like where you are, Adrian? You're in Tel Aviv now. What have you seen from residents there? This is day 10 now, of course, of the war. What have you been seeing, even over the weekend after sort of the first week now? Here we are.
Yeah, well, daily life is really unpredictable in Tel Aviv and across much of the region. At any moment, we could have air raid sirens, and those air raid sirens are quite specific to the area where you are, and that means that rockets are incoming. The Iron Dome does a pretty good job of knocking most of them down, but there has been multiple examples of where one has snuck through. So people are living with that, and as you can imagine, after more than a week of that, it begins to wear on the population. Speaking with people in a neighborhood called Jaffa, where Arab Israelis, Muslims, Palestinians live beside the Jewish community, and they've been having really important conversations together. It's a region where there has been protests before, but speaking with individuals on both sides, they say this is a time for us to come together in solidarity. It's easy when you don't live in this region to pick a side, but they're trying to bring people together. Also, people are trying to think about what a path forward might look like. The shock of last Saturday, it's still horrific, but speaking with one individual this morning, she said the shock is over. Now we're trying to figure out where do we go from here, because war in the past hasn't solved anything, and they don't believe it's going to solve anything this time either.
And Adrian, of course, we still don't know the fate of the 150 so hostages taken by Hamas. Is the Israeli government keeping a bit tight-lipped on this matter? Because, I don't know, they don't want to stir anything up potentially based on what their ground offensive will incur?
Yeah, there's not a lot of clarity on that ground offensive. We know for several days there's been thousands of soldiers that have been heading down towards the Gaza border. We know that they're being housed in schools and villages, in homes that have been vacated by families and community centers. We've heard, from multiple Israeli defense officials saying that one is imminent, though we haven't seen it happen yet. And we also, Benjamin Netanyahu was there a couple of days ago shaking hands with soldiers saying, "Are you ready?" We're waiting to see what the next hours have in store.
We will continue to wait indeed, and we're relying on you for the coverage. CTV National's Adrian Gobriel. Adrian, again, we appreciate this. Thanks for joining us again this morning.